for you here. Only a few hours since my last recording, so I wanted to go ahead and put this out for you guys. But again, hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell if you're rocking with me. If you get anything out of my content, I'd appreciate it. Let's get this awareness out to the people that need it. I'm pretty sure I'm kind of being shadow banned, so this isn't getting out there. People can't even see the comments or get the notification when I put something out new, and then I'm getting flagged. So I got to kind of tone it down because, the information is important. The awareness is the most important thing. Getting this out there to all of you, making everyone aware. We're a community. We're all together in this. No one is doing it alone. So let's go ahead and support each other. If I see something wrong with something, I'm going to say something. And you should do the same too. If you see anything wrong with my videos, if you see anything wrong with my content and you know better, come to me. I'm not bashful when it comes to, admitting I don't know something, but the difference is I'll go ahead and research and figure it out and then come back with the correct thing. So again, as a disclaimer, don't believe anything you see, don't believe anything that I say, do your own research. There's so much research to be done. And this is research that you need to know because you've been lied to, you've been indoctrinated. Your parents, your grandparents, they've been indoctrinated into a society that's teaching you that you're something that you're not. You're so much more than what you are. We all are. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't, a tinfoil hat thing. This is the truth. I've been to 30 countries. I've traveled, and that's not a lot when it comes to in terms of all of the countries in the world, but I've been to over half of the continents. I've been to 30 countries, and I've researched this stuff. Even as a child, I was curious. Why do these people do these things? Because they're different from my culture. As most of you know, I was born and raised in Germany, came to the U.S., mixed, that whole gambit. Nothing big, but, I'm curious. I'm a curious person. I'm an architect. I'm an engineer. I have been a very long time. So, and tomorrow's my birthday, so I wanted to put something out there that was actually close for me. December 13th is my birthday, so, let's get something good out there. Let's get something good on the table that's really going to stimulate the mind, make you actually go out there and read, do some research, a lot of people don't know how to search. Google is an engine. It has a translation. You have to be able, or it has a communication. You have to be able to communicate with it properly. All search engines do, but Google is also, I probably shouldn't say this on YouTube, but Google's not the one that I would use, but just because of who they're in bed with. But you can use Google, and if Google's your first step and you end up 7 steps later figuring out and it's not from Google, Google still had a part. So do your research, find things out. There's a lot of information out there, and people aren't reading enough. Books aren't as available as they were. People aren't being taught how to, use the Dewey Decimal System, how to go to a library and find the books, so that's a big thing. But I want to put this out there. I want to get it out there, and these are things that I personally think are going to help everybody, not only raise their frequencies, but also decalcify their pineal gland, become more in line with who you're supposed to be, not who you were indoctrinated to be. Those are two different things. You were indoctrinated to be a worker, not a thinker, but you can go from becoming a worker to a thinker. That's the main goal. And like I said before, if you feel, something doesn't vibe with you, research it. Just look it up. There's so much information out there. Now the skill comes in, like what I have, is to filter through all the BS, the nonsense, and I don't claim to know everything. I don't even claim to know half of everything. But there's a certain aspect to it to where you can say, okay, I know this isn't real. For me, I can't say that about you or anyone else, but for me, I can say, okay, I've been in this industry. I've worked at this for decades. I know this is BS, and that's all I'm trying to get across. So on that note, let's get into it.
Anything that annoys you is teaching you patience. Anyone who abandons you is teaching you how to stand up on your own 2 feet. Anything that angers you is teaching you forgiveness and compassion. Anything that has power over you is teaching you how to take your power back. Anything you hate is teaching you unconditional love. Anything you fear is teaching you courage to overcome your fear. Anything you can't control is teaching you how to let go. Everything in life is teaching you something.
Top 5 regrets of dying people. You know what the top regret was? That I wasn't being myself. That I wasn't true to myself. I wasn't being authentic. That's the top regret of dying people. And the third one was that I didn't express my feelings for fear of disturbing or displeasing others. So authenticity is not just a new age concept. It's actually a central dynamic in staying healthy human being.
That was absolutely beautiful. I wanted to share that just because it was an artist piece of what it's like when, you know, you're on the same plane as your soulmate. Uh, I think a lot of people get the difference between twin flames and soulmates mixed up. You can have many soulmates. There's only one twin flame, and that's because the divine spark that was created when you were created, and that spark can't even be measured. It's such a fast spark, cannot be measured. There's only one person who can, or one entity that can manipulate or even look at or see that, and that's source. You know, whatever source is to you. And that's because when that spark happened, you were born, someone else is born. Not born physically, spiritually. Your soul was created at the same time. So people often mix twin flame and soulmates, but I thought this was just absolutely beautiful. I'll shut up now, but I thought that was beautiful.
Working theories that people have when trying to understand or explain what is happening right now. The first theory, which is a pretty mainstream theory, and that is that in 2020 there was election finagling and that the current administration that we have is being run by foreign adversaries. The second theory requires a little bit deeper thinking, and that involves a shadow government run by the Obamas and the Clintons, with Joe Biden being the mouthpiece. The third theory requires the deepest amount of thinking, and that is the Great Awakening theory. Everything that is happening right now is being done to show you just how terrible things could potentially get if we didn't snap out of our comatose states, if we didn't start paying attention, if we didn't start speaking out, if we didn't start seeing things for what they are and not what we wanted them to be. Now, the third theory is a hard sell because it involves the perceived death of innocent souls. How can things like this happen if we're supposed to be moving forward into a state of nirvana? And the answer is in the word perceived. Major events have to happen, and they have to happen in order to garner a response, an emotional response out of you, to snap you out of your comatose state and get you to start looking around and seeing things for what they are.
Sorry to pause it, but I just want to comment. She's saying this, and you might have heard it in another way, where adversity is the only thing that builds character. You're not going to learn unless you have to go through adversity. And you were always taught, if you're within any kind of denomination of any religion, any Western religion, that is, well, a couple of Easterns, but still, if you're taught of any religion to look within yourself, that's what she's talking about. So, a lot of religions are taught, but religion was never the plan. That was their plan. That was not the plan for us. That was not the plan for what we're supposed to do. Everything that we're supposed to be is within us. Yeah, adversary makes you stronger. It builds character. There's universal law. These are laws that are governed by source. These laws cannot be broken. I don't care who you are or what you think, these laws cannot be broken. That's just that. But you'll notice when you go on to another path and you're on that path properly, things just seem to fall in place, and vice versa. When you're not on that path, things keep happening that are not for you. So I just wanted to throw that in there in case somebody didn't understand, why is this happening to me or this and that. But the whole world is a stage. And I'll get into that later. Let's just keep with this one.
Are not what you want them to be. For many of us, COVID-19 was that moment. We started seeing indoctrination, big pharma, and government overreach for what it was, not for what we wanted it to be. It was that one moment that stops you and plants the seed of separation between you and the matrix. It's so infuriating, so triggering that you can't ignore it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter which theory you decide to believe, inevitably we are all going to end up in the same place. And that place is perception. A split has happened, and there is one group that is not ever going to take accountability. They're just going to complain about how terrible things are, and they are going to continue to fight for the matrix that holds them down because it gives them a false sense of superiority and it gives them a false sense of security. Then there is going to be another group that chose to rise up and chose to take self-accountability and is actively teaching other people how to do the same. The second group understands that nobody is coming to save us, but does wish to have a leader that makes it easier for us to save ourselves. No matter what happens, that group is going to be okay because they understand that the game is an emotional one and they refuse to be emotionally triggered by things that they cannot control. The second group will choose community and family and stability. They will die on the hill of their convictions and have moved past trying to convince other people to join them. They are no longer interested in awakening the masses. Understand that people will awaken on their own if they choose to do so, and they may never. The first group will continue to perceive their lives as something that they have no control over. They will live in their 15-minute city. The second group understands that their life is well within their control and start making choices in order to better it. They will probably live in the freedom cities, which are technically both the same thing, but it's all about perception.
That's sad. If that's all you think life is, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, and it's sad. Who would want to live in a world to where that's all you had, to where either you're too realistic or nihilistic? I would say the nihilists are the worst because not only do they not believe in anything else, they feel that this world is, as shown to them. So these are the ones that are watching Fox News, CBS, MSNBC, these things, and just watching and believing everything that they're saying. Trust me, I know tons of people, and I'm sure you all know tons of people like that too. The other groups are the ones that go within. They realize, hey, we've been lied to. We've been lied to horribly. And our entire environment is trying to kill us at any point. Whether it's what we drink, even the water. You have to worry about your water? 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 Really? You have to worry about your water. It's 2023 and certain people in certain countries on certain continents don't have clean water? Think about that. It's asinine. It's asinine to even think about. To perceive that, you realize children all over don't have clean water. Why is that? We have the money, we have the technology. So you start asking yourself, and this is how that rabbit hole starts. You start asking yourself, why don't they have access to this? Why can't we just give it to them? We have these things. We can mass produce at a cheap rate and just give it to them. So why don't they have it? Well, because somebody does not want them to have it. Then you ask that question. Who is that, and why do they not want them to have it? And then the rabbit hole starts, and you're digging, you're digging, you're digging. I don't know why I did that for digging, but I guess that's what I felt digging was at the moment.
And this stood up to me.
Yeah, but we can forget about him.
Yeah, it was just one ant. Yeah, you're right. It's just one ant. Yeah, boys, they're puny. Puny? Say, let's pretend this brain is a puny little ant.
Did that hurt?
No.
Well, how about this one? Are you kidding? How about this?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. And this stood up to me.
Did you know that only 15% of humanity is in a higher level of consciousness, and these 15% are pulling up the rest of humanity? This is from the book Truth versus Falsehood by Dr. David Hawkins. As a collective, we're currently in the vibration of courage. So if we look at the map of consciousness, we're currently at the vibration of 207, which is right above the vibration of courage. And humanity as a whole got to this level in the early 2000s. So what happens when we reach the vibration of courage? Well, eventually all of the darkness gets revealed because we are now in the level of power or the level of truth, because truth starts at 4D. So for a visualization, 15% of the world is at courage or above, and 85% is at pride or below. So what that should show you is how powerful higher levels of consciousness really are. It only takes 15% of us to be up here. This is why your vibration is extremely important, because you can affect the consciousness of mankind directly, not only by your actions, by your state of being.
African, Native American, Aboriginal, and other cultures experienced oneness with all life, the ability to prophecy, and multi-dimensional realities that shattered paradigms the Church desperately wanted to impose. The Vatican was fundamentally afraid of feminine energy, psychic phenomena, and knowledge that empowered people to reach their own spiritual truths that could contradict Church control. Thus, it aimed to demonize and extinguish indigenous cultures, especially those with the most profoundly developed spiritual practices like the Africans. In truth, the Vatican was aware of the immense power and capabilities of these traditions because it appropriated much occult knowledge from them, especially the Egyptians, also known as the Kemites. Secret Catholic orders and societies coveted the mystical secrets of the very people they worked to oppress. As we stated in one of our previous videos on how the Pope secretly bows down to the Black Madonna, who is the Kemetic goddess Aset, whom the Greeks called Isis. It is important to understand that for thousands of years, ancient African civilizations were keepers of deep spiritual wisdom, cosmic knowledge, and mystic technologies. They had mastered energetic practices, consciousness expansion, and methods to transcend ordinary existence. This scared the Vatican deeply, In particular,
Stay.
mystery schools in Egypt housed occult knowledge far more advanced than the Vatican's. They developed techniques to separate consciousness from the body, channel cosmic
down,
energies,
Sasha.
manifest intention, communicate with spirits, and unlock the hidden powers of the mind. They had a profound understanding of divine feminine energy and the interplay between the masculine and feminine aspects of the cosmos. The Egyptians also explored ritual plant medicines, sacred mushroom technology, and alchemy to achieve illumination. Much of this knowledge was transmitted orally through secret societies to preserve the most profound revelations only for the properly initiated. The Vatican targeted Egypt for conquest, not only due to its political power, but also to seize control of this esoteric knowledge. When Egypt fell, the Vatican drained the country of hundreds of thousands of sacred texts, hoarding them in the Vatican Library. But it simultaneously worked to suppress Egyptian cultural practices and learnings. The Vatican feared most that indigenous African civilizations embodied lineages of ancient Egyptian mystery school teachings. Their shamans, priests, and healers safeguarded powerful knowledge of energy work, consciousness, and advanced inner technologies to experience higher planes of existence. If allowed to thrive, these cultures could nurture realization of humanity's dormant clairvoyance, psychic abilities, and passport to transcend the matrix-like illusion imposed by the ruling elite. So the church developed strategies to disconnect indigenous peoples from their spiritual heritage, distort their cosmology, destroy cultural artifacts and texts, and reprogram minds through systematic trauma. It used force, fear, violence, and trauma to shut down areas of the brain that enabled higher perception. The brutal conquest of Africa and the Americas was spiritual warfare camouflaged as colonialism. For example, here are some key events in history where the Vatican Church launched vicious campaigns to undermine the power of these enlightened cultures. Number 1. The Catholic Church's so-called doctrine of discovery in the 15th century encouraged the conquest and seizure of indigenous lands, paving the way for colonization of Africa and the Americas. Number 2. Missionary activity, starting in the 15th century, sought to convert native populations in Africa and the Americas to Christianity to bring them under papal authority. This undermined indigenous spiritual beliefs. Number 3. The Spanish Inquisition, beginning in 1478, persecuted and forcibly converted Moors, Sufi Muslims, and mystical traditions in Spain, demonstrating the Church's campaign against other enlightened orders. Also, the violent suppression of Gnostic sects in the Middle Ages showed the Vatican sought to eliminate mystical Christian movements that challenged papal power. Number 4. Notorious incidents like the Salem witch trials in the late 1600s illustrated the Catholic Church's attempts to suppress mysticism and stamp out heresy. The Salem witch trials in the late 1600s disproportionately targeted women, particularly women seen as threats to puritanical patriarchal authority. Many of the accused women were skilled as herbalists, midwives, and healers, preserving folk knowledge from their native and African roots. This event demonstrated the campaign against feminine spiritual power and the branding of indigenous wisdom as witchcraft. The Spanish Inquisition also focused heavily on persecuting women accused of witchcraft and mysticism, with the number of executions estimated in the tens of thousands. This illustrated the Catholic Church's fear of divine feminine energy and attempt to dominate through terror. Although there were European women killed and burned at the stake during the witch hunts, mainstream history has failed to mention there were hundreds, maybe thousands of African women killed as witches in Europe's witch hunts. These indigenous women of African descent, sometimes referred to as Moors, were the influencers and teachers of those European women whom were also called witches. The Vatican's efforts to specifically stamp out folk magic and earth-based spirituality was ruthless, and this cult of Rome ruthlessly targeted anyone who openly accepted the arcane sciences of the Moors, regardless of the race. The demonization of their practices served to disconnect people from ancestral wisdom traditions. The slave trade. The slave trade amplified this agenda by abducting millions of Africans with high levels of spiritual prowess. They were beaten, chained, and terrorized to shut down their connection to ancestors and access to cosmic consciousness. This focused disconnection of African peoples from their deepest roots and soul purposes continued through Jim Crow, apartheid, police brutality, and modern systemic racism. Now, you may be asking yourselves, how are the Vatican this powerful? Aren't they just a religious organization? Did they have the power to launch such vicious campaigns, such as wars, slavery, and colonialism? Well, it appears they did. Let's break it down. Beneath the Vatican lies the Rothschild dynasty, who serve as the personal bankers of the papacy. This secret agreement has given them the sinister moniker, the Papal Bull. Under this cloud of secrecy, the Rothschilds manage the vast wealth of the Vatican, ensuring that this powerful religious institution continues to exert its influence on a global scale. This unholy alliance between the Rothschilds and the Vatican represents a fusion of financial and spiritual power that has been kept hidden from the masses. Through this union, they control not only the flow of money, but also the narrative that guides the faith of billions. The Rothschilds are given free rein to manipulate markets, instigate wars, and sway politics to align with Vatican aims. Yet, they remain subordinate servants, for their true power lies not in riches, but in maintaining the illusion of monetary control. Behind the curtain, the Vatican pulls their strings as the spiritual controller of over 1 billion faithful. With an arsenal of religious indoctrination at its disposal, the Vatican exerts invisible rule over masses. The Rothschilds provide a financial front to conceal the Vatican's true reach. Ultimately, it is not money, but man's soul where true power lies.
I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was just simply beautifully put. It's extremely disheartening and sad to know that, you know, this is how people were done. And I've studied all of this. I have all of the books on, not all of the books, but I have the major books on all of this. And it's sad to know that peoples were being done this way, you know, and then, you know, taught a lie. Everyone was taught a lie, and then you're told to forget your own history. Can you imagine that? You know, all of these things happening to your people, your families, and you're just told to forget it and move on to something else that you're not.
We're like the only race of people that they tell us to forget our history. Everybody else to be like, we're gonna let you know so it doesn't repeat itself. Don't you forget that shit. That shit's not gonna happen. Every other person, and then they'll all ask us to support them. In their plight. They just want us to continue to entertain, give them creative ideas so they can steal all of that shit. We are the only motherfuckers that they tell to forget about our history. The shit is so disgusting. When you go to a doctor's office, what's the first thing they do? They pull out your medical history. Because we have to assess what is happening now. We got to look back and see, okay, let's see what happened. You were last time you were here, this happened. That's how you're able to move forward. They don't use that same philosophy on African American, African history. We are so deeply hated. They hate us so much.
It's so true.
And if they're not making money off of, if they're not benefiting sexually, monetarily, culturally, they don't think of us as human beings.
Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope that gave you a little something to think about. I'm going to get into more depth. You know, we're building up on something here. I want you guys to really understand this. And I'm trying to put it out there in a way, you know, you gotta give you a spoonful at a time. We can't just shove it down your throat, you know. You gotta get a spoonful at a time, let it digest, marinate on it, think about it, and then move on to the next one. Can't just shove stuff down your throat. Nobody likes that. Well, Usually. Nobody likes that. So I'm trying to put this in a certain perspective to make it easier to comprehend. And I want everybody to learn from this. I want everybody to really latch on to this. That's the main thing, is awareness. The more we've got, like you said, we've got 15% of the population raising up the other 85%. That's a big deal. That's a big responsibility. That's a lot on our shoulders. And this doesn't mean YouTube. This is conscious stuff. This means we've changed our lives so drastically to fit the paradigm of what's real, and we're trying to bring you all along with us. If you ask me, do you inspect all of your food? Yes. Do you have a contingency plan for failure of the electrical system or the technology or anything? Yes, I do. You ask me, do you? I don't eat anything that's not natural. Anything I can't pronounce. Anything with chemicals. I don't do it. I don't let my family do it. I want my family to have the best. I want my family to know what real food tastes like. I want my family to not have to go to the doctor because they drank water or they ate, something that was made with soybean oil. I want my family to not have to go to a doctor to get prescriptions for something that can be cured naturally. I want us to heal. I want us to wake up, and that's my whole point. My agenda is to try to help wake everyone up. That's the only thing I'm trying to do. You don't have to like me, you don't have to agree with me, but like I've said before, and I know it sounds crazy, but don't believe me, don't believe these videos, research it yourself. But also, I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to present anything. Well, I'll present things, but I'm not going to comment on anything that I haven't personally experienced or dealt with. Everybody has their own perceptions, right? But the gauge of a wise person is the one that can not only understand when they're wrong and accept the right thing and move on with that, but also the one that realizes that they need to be able to put themselves in everyone's shoes. And I'm really good at that. That's something that I'm extremely good at. I don't know what it is, but I can put myself in everyone's shoes. And I mean everyone. Psychologically, I can put myself in everyone's shoes. That's something that I'm good at. That's something that I'm very keen at understanding. And, I always have been able to do that. And I also, my lines are blurred because I can walk into realms that most people can't. I can cross borders that most people can't. I've got a knack for that. And that's my thing. That might not be your thing. You might have something way better, and that's great. And that's why, as a community, we need to be together to put our information together and understand one another, because all of these things are gifts, and they're gifts that we were blessed with, and they're gifts that we were given to be able to fight against tyrannical whatever, raise up arms against whoever, understand that we were being lied to by whoever, but the point is, the whole world is trying, let me rephrase that, the average person all over the world is trying to do the same thing. Raise their family, love their loved ones, live a happy life, pursue happiness and peace. That's what I see everywhere I've been. 30 countries, multiple continents. I see that everywhere. But I also see the exact opposite. Greed, filth, excess, narcissism, sociopaths, psychopaths, or a combination of, you know, narcissism with psychopathy, narcissism with sociopathy. Either way, those are bad. And if you're watching my videos, you're not that. So I'm not worried about talking to them. I'm talking to the beautiful ones that are watching my videos. That's all. So I'm gonna hit you guys with something good. I got a really good one that's coming off of this. So just stick with me. Stick with me. You know, we're building, we're moving, but you know, just stick with me. It'll get better. Trust me.